So again, just because now I'm recording, we're going to go over the 3.01 notes. You can get the notes right here and everything. If you go to module and go to the 3.01 module, go with that one now. Oh, I need to publish it. There's notes right here, and you can get the notes from right here as well, and do the fill in blank. Do however you need to for the notes. You know, if you need to go write them on a separate piece of paper and take a picture, if you need to just put it in a Word document, just figure out what the blanks are and go from there. It doesn't matter to me. However, the best way works for you. Let's see. It'll load the little preview. Okay, I guess it's not going to load the preview. Oh, of course, now it does. You can see there's blanks, and then just make sure you fill in those blanks. So this is going on the next 6 weeks. So, I mean, I would go ahead and do it today, but just so you're not worried, it's not going on this 6 weeks. Cool. So we're going over employment law. This is about 30 slides. So, that's not for me. All right, so we're going to go over this real quick. I'm going to give you a little bit of time to make sure you got all your stuff out, you got the notes up. Good. Grab my food. Okay, let's get started. So employment law. Employment law, division of law that governs the relationship between employers and employees. Employment law stems from various forms of law, including tort, criminal, contract, and labor law. So a lot of the stuff we've already gone over is going to come back into play for this section. So again, the main thing you need to remember though is employment law is basically the law that is governing the relationship between employees and employers. So the employer is the person who hires someone. So a person or someone who pays a person for a wage, salary, payment, or fee in exchange for supervising and controlling the employee's activities. So you come to work, you do your job, and the employer pays you, and you are the employee, person who works for an employer for a wage, salary, payment, or fee, guided by an express or implied agreement. The employee is under the control and supervision of the employer. So basically, we're kind of going back to that contract section we just talked about, where you are kind of doing what they tell you to, and in exchange, you are getting paid to do that. Independent contractors are a little bit different, though. Person who works for an employer for a wage, salary, payment, or fee, guided by an express implied agreement. Person is not subject to the control or supervision of an employer. So they have a little bit more control over what they're doing. They are basically being contracted out to do a job. For instance, if McDonald's or Taco Bell opens up a new restaurant somewhere, they're probably going to contract it out to a construction company who's going to maybe tear down an old building, get a building prepared for something, and then they're going to go in and build their new restaurant. So that would be like a contractor. They're not really under the, direct control from whoever's building that McDonald's. They basically have some specifications they have to follow, but he's not going to come out there and tell them they're digging up the dirt wrong or they're putting up this wall wrong. They're not going to go out there and do that. Now, he will go out there if they're building it in the wrong location, or if they're putting up the wrong signs or something like that. That would be the only control they'd really have. So express employment agreement. So a formal contract, either oral or written, that specifically states the terms and conditions of employment. So that's just an express employment agreement. So a contract between employer and employee. Employment law basics. So an employment contract is in which the term and conditions may be inferred through actions, comments, promises, and employment practices of either the employer or the employee. Pretty basic stuff. NC Department of Labor promotes the general well-being, safety, and health of NC workers by enforcing occupation and health standards, setting the minimum wage and maximum number of work hours per week, providing apprentice programs for skilled trades, conducting inspections for mines, boilers, elevators, amusement rides, and quarries. So basically, this is to make sure if you ever get a job somewhere that you're not being taken advantage of by the employer. We saw during different industrial revolutions, a lot of this stuff kind of ended up happening where people would be put into dangerous work situations. Small children would be being put to work, and we're going to see how that kind of ended up causing laws to be made, and even a department in North Carolina, and most states have departments like this to make sure people aren't being taken advantage of. So Fair Labor Standards Act also refers to the Wage and Hour Act, so federal law that sets the minimum wage, overtime pay, and age requirements for certain types of employees. Again, we're trying to make sure that small children aren't being forced to work in very dangerous conditions. We're trying to make sure that small children aren't going to work at too early of an age. This act does not apply to minimum wage or overtime pay of professional workers, executive, administrative, and outside sales employees. So if you're working for a large company and it is a part-time job, then this really isn't counting for that. Something very important to remember in this is there's a reason that these are minimum wage and overtime pay and things for part-time jobs. These are not careers, these are part-time jobs. Something very important just to remember in the future. Fair Labor Standards Act. So North Carolina Youth Employment Provision of Wage and Hour Act of non-agricultural occupations. This is literally a question on your test, and it's one of the easiest ones you'll probably get. It'll ask you about what laws deal with the age of employees, and it's going to be literally the North Carolina Youth Employment Provision Wage and Hour Act. Like, it's that easy. It's literally telling you the answer in the name of it. Law that establishes labor standards and labor guidelines for youth 17 years old and younger. In general, children of any age are permitted to work for business owned by their parents. So you don't have to work. You're not, there's different rules. At 16, you can start working at some companies, but some companies don't even allow you to work until you're 18. So that being said, you're not, and you're also not supposed to work for so many hours when you're under 18, unless it's for your family-owned business. Occupational Safety and Health Act. So federal act that establishes and promotes workplace safety standards for business. Employers should undertake specific precautions to ensure that the workplace is free of hazards that would lead to harm, permanent injury, or death. Violators may be fined up to $7,000 per day. Like, for instance, no one came in here and did this, right? But it's in our handbook and things that we're supposed to do. We're supposed to make sure that our cords are, orderly fashion, make sure no one's tripping on them. The school would get sued, obviously, if you tripped over this and you fell and it wasn't protected at all. This honestly, this whole little strip right here, for instance, keeps us protected from a lawsuit. Had I not done this, I probably gotten in trouble until I did it, and it was for my own protection and for y'all's protection. Same thing, if the floors out there get wet, they're usually going to have a caution wet floor sign, things like that. And this protects the consumer, and in y'all's case, the student, and even the teacher, who is, in my case, the employee. So things like that. Americans with Disabilities Act. So federal act that prohibits discrimination based on a person's disability if the person with the disability is able to perform the essential functions of the job requirements. Obviously, someone can't sue if they have a disability that does not allow them to do the job. But if someone wants to be an accountant, or they want to be a receptionist, or something where they're sitting behind a desk and they happen to be in a wheelchair, you can't deny them that job because they're in a wheelchair, because they probably can function at that job. Meanwhile, the person in the wheelchair probably can't do a job where they're doing a lot of different heavy lifting, or something where they're supposed to be, climbing upstairs, things like that. Obviously, that just unfortunately doesn't work out that way. Age Discrimination Act and Employment. So this act prohibits discrimination against applicants and employees 40 years of age or older throughout the employment process. This act only applies to business employing 20 or more people. Big thing with this becomes a big gray area. Not everything's black and white. when you get to 80 and 90 years old, are you going to be as quick and sharp up here as you were when you were 20 or 30? Probably not. Some people are, but a good majority of us, and I mean, it all happens to us. When you get older, you just start, not being able to do things as quick or as fast as you used to, and it can lead to mistakes. That's why a lot of lawsuits have come out, because there's this act that basically protects anyone 40 and older from being fired due to their age. But it's not fair to a business to have to keep someone who's 95 years old, just still wanting to work, but they're making tons of mistakes because they're getting older, and that's what happens in life. But usually those end up getting settled, because if you can prove that they're not doing their job correctly, then you have the right to fire them. But you can't just fire them because of their age. They have to, basically, you have to wait till they make a mistake. And maybe they don't make a mistake, so there is that too. Family and Medical Leave Act. This act provides eligible employees with unpaid job protected leave for certain family or medical conditions, such as the birth or adoption of a child. The employee is diagnosed with a serious health condition. The employees need to care for a close relative with a serious health condition. For a long time, you didn't really get much time if you were having a child. For instance, my grandfather, when he was in school, which he was born in 1940, to give you reference, he had a teacher who got pregnant. He didn't realize she got pregnant. One day she just wasn't there. They basically let her go because she got pregnant. Obviously, that's not okay anymore. You can't do that anymore. You got to allow, like, if a teacher gets pregnant now, then they get a sub, and then they come back after they've had their child. And they continue to work while they're still pregnant. But the school system then, she couldn't even be in the classroom when she was showing that she was pregnant. So, interesting stuff. Things change, and a lot of times things change for the better. So, because obviously we don't want to live in a world where as soon as you get pregnant, you get fired from your job. That would be a little ridiculous. So, and now businesses are required to give you plenty of time, and they used to not even give you much time. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Obviously, a lot of civil rights stuff going on in the 1960s. A lot of stuff happening and laws changing, and that was no different for employment law. So this act prohibits employment agencies, employers, and unions from discriminating against applicants and employees on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, or sex. Discrimination is prohibited throughout the employment process, including hiring, compensation, promotion, training, and termination. So basically, if you don't hire someone or you fire someone, you have to have a reason. And obviously, race, gender, color, religion, or sexual orientation cannot be a reason for that. Does that mean everything is peaches and oranges when it comes to the workforce world? No. Obviously, people have prejudice in them. They are discriminatory sometimes, and they might try to fire someone over their race, and then there's usually a lawsuit. And it goes round and round when it comes to the business world of people either getting fired because they really needed to get fired, or maybe getting fired because they just don't like that person. And stuff like that happens all the time. Sometimes it's not over race or color, maybe they just don't like the person. And that's just, unfortunately, the world we live in. It's not perfect, but these laws try to help get us in the right direction. So things got a little even more better in the Civil Rights Act of 1991. The purpose of this act was to strengthen the civil rights law, in particular, in a disparate impact. So disparate impact occurs when an employer creates a seemingly fair employment practice that has a negative impact on members of a protected class. So under this act, employers must prove that their practices are based on the job qualifications. So a good example of this is back to like the pregnancy thing, basically like causing a thing where you can't work here if there's a chance you could get pregnant. Well, that would work against all females, so that law isn't correct. Now, if there's a law stating that, or there's a bylaw in the company that you have to be this tall to be able to work for their company for safety purposes, you can't sue them for, like height discrimination or something, because that's for like safety purposes. And I'm sure you can find little areas where you can find on both sides where people have tried to do things that would hurt a race or a gender or even a religion. And then you can find things where they literally are doing it for safety purposes or for the good of the company. So again, it's not black and white. There's gray areas, there's things in between. And that's when we end up going to court over them. Employment at will, so employer or an employee can terminate employment at will for any reason or no reason without being liable for breach of contract. Certain types of employees are not subject to employment at will laws, including employees with contracts and unionized employees. This is scary. You don't really want to work for employment at will because that means they can just get rid of you for no reason. Technically, my mom works at the courthouse, which now she's a little bit different of a position. I don't know if she's employment at will now or not. But she used to work under the clerk of court. So, for instance, my mom had to always worry about her boss's position, which was elected official. If she got a new boss in there, he could fire her or she could fire her just because she didn't want her anymore. So every time my mom's boss runs for re-election, we always have to try and help her get elected because we don't want my mom to lose her job. So there you go. So a union, an organized or an employee formed to ensure favorable work conditions, wages, work hours, benefits, and grievance procedures. I'm going to be honest with you, there's not a whole lot of questions on exams for me or the final exam about unions. It's important to kind of understand the differences between the few of them, but it's not that big of a deal, so don't get too stressed out about it. Closed shop, employees must join the union before being hired. If you remember that, you'll be fine. A union shop, non-union employees can be hired, but must join union within a certain amount of time. Agency shops, so employees are not required to join the union, yet they still must pay union dues. And the open shop employees are not required to join the union or pay union dues. And that's where we live, that's not a thing. So, and I'm about to talk about that here in a minute of where union shops are and where they're not. So right to work laws, the state law that prohibits employees from requiring employees to join a union or pay union dues as a condition of employment. Airlines and railway employees are not protected by this law. What are the right to work states? We're about to show them. Right here is pretty obvious here what's going on. What is this and what is this? Up here we've got the north, right? Down here we got the south. For the most part, from the beginning of this country's lifespan, what is the main thing happening down here? What's happening?
People are working.
What now?
People are working.
Well, people are working, but what are they doing? What is their job? What is a majority of people probably doing or having something to do with down here?
Farming.
What now?
Farming.
There's farming. What's going on up here? Factories, people are manufacturing things. That's correct. So, was there a need for a union in farming for the most part? Not really. People have their own farms. They work on their farms. And obviously, we're not talking about before the Civil War with slavery or anything. We're talking about just after the Civil War, where people are just working on farms down here. Because that's when these laws became, the union stuff became a thing, late 1800s, early 1900s. There's factories up here, and they realized, okay, we need to protect our workers because they're working long hours. They're asking them to come back in, or they'll lose their job, things like that. So these unions were to help these kind of more manufacturing-like states. While in the South, we really didn't need those because people were just working on their farms. And I'm sure there's some instances where they would like to have some unions on some farms, but basically you can see, for the most part, these states where there's probably more agricultural stuff going on, they don't have unions. And that's why, honestly, y'all, I don't understand all the ins and outs of unions and how they work. I just was talking about this actually with my business management class. You don't really, if you don't live in that kind of state, then you really don't know how all that works because, again, I mean, we just don't see it. But up north they have it a little bit more. And even some of the schools, and just it's because of that divide, it happens. The school systems up north may have unions for their teachers, whereas down here, we do not have that. So it just changes depending on where you're at. Okay, so unemployment compensation. So we got about 7 more slides to go through and then we'll be done. Insurance program that provides temporary income for qualified individuals who are unemployed through no fault of their own. Very important, no fault of their own. You can't quit a job and then apply for unemployment. Eligibility requirements for collecting unemployment compensation varies by state. The North Carolina Division of Employment Security handles unemployment claims for our state. So in North Carolina, any individual wanting to collect or continue to collect unemployment compensation must register for work through the Employment Security Commission, which basically will help find you a job. File a claim for each week that benefits are needed, and actively seek employment during any week unemployment benefits are received. I don't know how well they look in on that, but as long as you're trying to get a job, you've registered up for that up there, and you claim each week, you should get unemployment benefit. Weird noise. All right. Continue on. Denial of unemployment benefits. In North Carolina, any individual may be denied unemployment compensation if he or she quits a job, gets fired from a job, refuses a referral job, turns down a job offer, refuses to approve commission training, or fails to complete approved commission training. So same thing if, for instance, Ms. Haddock is lateral entry. I have my business education degree, but if for some reason she decided she was not going to take those classes she needs to take to become lateral entry and she gets fired, she can apply for unemployment, because that would be ridiculous. She's the reason she got fired, correct? Or she's the reason she got let go. If she were taking her classes and doing what she was supposed to, they wouldn't have let her go. Basic stuff. So just keep that in mind. Again, I don't think there's many test questions on the exact reasons on that. As long as you understand kind of the reasons behind unemployment, then you'll be fine. The Social Security Act, enacted in 1935 to provide financial assistance to eligible workers and their dependents in the form of retirement, disability, and death benefits. The Act established the social insurance program, commonly called Social Security. Federal insurance program funded by the tax contributions of employees and employers. So really, when we talk about Social Security, it's not like you necessarily are getting money from the government. You are getting money from the government, but you already paid them that money. So it's technically your money, you're just getting it back later, and they're giving you a little bit of interest. So you're getting a little bit of money from the government. The problem is, that's running out. So probably y'all won't see any of that. I probably won't see hardly any of it. And it's going to be what it's going to be. So I'll probably have to just work until I die. Or I get fired because I'm 95 and I don't know how to do work on a computer anymore. Social Security disability benefits, so replaces income when a severe, long-lasting disability or terminal illness prevents eligible person from doing any substantial work. Claim is filed through the Social Security Administration. 6 months required elimination, waiting period, and periodic review of status to continue benefits. So if you do have a disability or something, someone's probably going to come out and make sure you're not faking it, so you can get basically free retirement for not even working that long. Okay, we're getting there. Social Security retirement benefits. So eligible person can receive a percentage of Social Security by age 62, but the individual can receive full benefits at either age 65 or 67. You see what crazy thing I was just talking about before we get started? What year did I tell you I could graduate? What year could I retire at? 52, maybe even earlier, right? If I play my cards right. What's the problem? I got 10 years to get to where I can get benefits, and 13 years to get to full benefits. So that being said, that's why I told you, I'm going to have to go work, and I'm probably going to work for a lot longer because I got to meet that 65-year range. So I'm going to have to work for another 10 years by either going and teaching at a private school, or maybe I just continue working here, but you technically are losing money when you do that. But that's a long explanation on how that works, but yeah. Social Security death benefits, so lump sum payment given to the surviving spouse upon the death of a person who worked long enough to qualify for Social Security benefits. The average death benefit is $255. Will that get you through the week? If you got 2 kids and your husband just died or your wife just died and y'all need to go get groceries, that'll pay for your groceries probably, won't it? And that's probably about it. If that, I mean, who knows? So that's kind of sucky. So it's important to make sure, you're putting things in savings and that your spouse has the ability to get a job as well in case something were to happen to you. But, like for instance, probably Ms. Haddock would get barely nothing because I haven't worked that long. I've worked for 4 years. On the flip side, if Ms. Haddock were to pass away, I probably would get literally nothing because she's only been working for like a year and that's it. So basically, we're worthless. No, I'm just kidding. But you get the picture. We're not getting a whole lot of money. And also, we don't get paid a lot, so that's kind of in there too. Workers' compensation, we get paid well. Don't get started on that rant again. Have I done that rant here? Haven't done that. I'll do that rant. This is the last slide, then I'll do that rant. Workers' compensation, a government-regulated program that provides medical benefits and income to employees who are injured or who develop a disability or disease as a result of their job. Important thing there, a result of their job. I can't go play hockey on Wednesday nights and get seriously injured to the point I can't come do my job and say, hey, I want workers' comp. No, I did that on my own. But if the ceiling right here of this thing, I've used this before, I'm pretty sure, if this vent right here falls off and hits me in the head and I get hurt and I can't come to work, then I can get workers' compensation. So, and I always have a hard time. Indemnities pay employees for their loss of income. Insurance is paid for by employer, because most of the time you have insurance through your worker. On the note of teachers' compensation, I do think I get paid right decently good. Would I like more money? Yeah, I wouldn't turn down more money. But I will say, I get irritated when a whole bunch of teachers, and this is again my opinion, that, you know, we get paid well, at least around here, for what we make. Also, the benefits we get, no one ever talks about that. We get really good benefits. We have very good health insurance, and I get dental. I have dental and vision insurance for $30 a month. That's pretty good. So I don't complain much about how much I get paid. I think I get paid pretty well. And especially the new teachers who've come in, who are complaining, we knew what we were getting ourselves into when we signed up to be teachers, whatever years ago it was. And technically, I think when I started with wanting becoming a teacher, my freshman year of college, I think starting salaries may have been $30,000 for a teacher, and now it's $35,000. So not bad, not bad. And there's ways to supplement it, but like I'm doing the national board thing, which was where I got y'all to sign that stuff, and that's like a 12% raise. So I'll be okay. The important thing to remember, and this is for anything in life, is you can't live outside of your means. Does that make sense? Like you got to live within inside your means. If you can't afford to go on like 10 vacations a year, you can't afford to go on 10 vacations a year. So don't do that. If you can't afford to buy the most expensive thing on the menu when you go out to eat, don't buy the most expensive thing on the menu. Live conservatively with your money and you'll be okay. But if you go out there spending your money willy-nilly and you know you're not making, you know, triple digits in your salary, you're not going to turn out too well. But that's just Mr. Haddock's life lessons for today. All right, I'm going to stop the recording and stop ranting.